Forge FC is ready for their upcoming match.
Simply stunning stuff. And finally, their goal. My word, what a rocket.
Now, let's get you up to date with Anthony Urciuoli and Match Day Preview on the Forge Audio Network.
Hey, Forge fans, it's the Forge Audio Network. I'm Anthony Urciuoli. This is your official home of the reigning, defending, undisputed Canadian Premier League champions, Forge FC. This week, massive opportunity to grab 3 points, much needed, crucial points against Vancouver FC. It all goes down Sunday, 5 o'clock kickoff Eastern time at Willoughby Community Park Stadium in Langley, BC. It's Vancouver, it's Forge. Now, welcome to the playoffs before the playoffs. If you saw last weekend's match against Ottawa, where Forge and Atleti battled to a scoreless draw, coaches, players after the match, they really felt that playoff atmosphere. And when you look at the numbers in this match, because here's what just pops out right in your face. More than half of the match was played in the midfield. Nearly 53% of play was concentrated in the middle of the pitch, which can only suggest that you have two teams battling and protecting the house, playing very tight defensively, not trying to make any mistakes, not playing safe, but let's say playing responsible. And it was just very tight. Not a lot of space out there. Forge thought they could have been better. And I will read you the quote from Bobby Smirniotis, Forge head coach, post-match in that scoreless draw against Ottawa. Quote, "I thought we should have been better in going in behind that space as we didn't do it enough. Sometimes it's a matter of personnel, and today we're missing two very creative players in that attacking part of the field, and David Choinière and Tristan Borges, who were both unavailable, and that changed things up a little bit. But to be honest, we also got into the midfield pockets very well when we thought they'd be able to congest that. But I think we just needed to have a little more forward momentum, some more forward runs, and be a little more incisive with our passes." End quote. So midfield play, solid. We expect that from Forge. The issue, I guess for both clubs, not a lot of space in that attacking third. But Forge, though, thought there was some opportunity. There were some openings. There were some pockets. They just were unable to exploit it. And to Ottawa's credit, we are talking about, the gold standard over the past, almost 2 seasons now of just really solid defensive play. Ottawa, not only are they so good defensively, they love to defend. They are so comfortable. This is a club that, despite contending for first place right now, the only club of all the playoff teams are the only club who averages less than 50% possession per match. It just, they don't, there's no panic. They are so good defensively, so comfortable in their defensive third. Now, frankly, I do not expect the same this Sunday, but if you're Forge, I said opportunity off the top of the broadcast, and that is exactly what this is. Forge, they almost have to approach this match against Vancouver as if they're playing, Ottawa, York, Calgary, Pacific. Something seems to happen when Forge plays Vancouver, and it's happened this year. Vancouver, an expansion club, bottom of the table, struggled all season. They gave up 2 goals per match. They gave up a lot of chances, but for whatever reason, when Forge plays Vancouver, Forge, they lack energy and that urgency. And I don't know if it's a matter of looking at your opponent and maybe adjusting based on quality. I can't say for sure, but human nature kicks in. It is what it is. As much as we look at pro athletes as, inhuman, those human tendencies are still going to be there. We are biologically programmed to preserve energy when it's not necessarily needed. So when you're playing against a club like Vancouver, when you can get away with, not necessarily emptying the tank and being a little more kind of thoughtful in what you do, you have a little more time on the ball when you're playing against a club like Vancouver. Sometimes you can overthink yourself. And I think at the end of the day, I think human nature kicks in. So this club has to will itself, force itself mentally, whatever they have to do to treat this like they're not playing Vancouver, like they are in a final, like they're in a playoff game, like they're in a must-win situation. Because, by the way, when you look at the table, it's not must-win in a literal sense, but it's very, very close. Forge FC right now in 5th place, which is the final playoff spot. Forge FC right now is in a play-in game for the playoffs, and they've played one less match than all the clubs. They played one more match than all the clubs ahead of them. So they still have ground that could be made up on them. They have 32 points in 5th place. They are tied with both Ottawa and Halifax, but Ottawa-Halifax, they have a match in hand. And Pacific. So this is unbelievable. This league will never cease to amaze me. You look at the table. Cavalry is in 1st place with 36 points. From 2nd to 5th, Pacific, Ottawa, Halifax, Forge, they all have 32 points, 4 points back of Cavalry. The main difference being Forge has played one extra match. So, is it must win? Literally, no. But it's very close to that. This club has already dropped 4 points against Vancouver. Out of 9 possible points, Forge have picked up, 4? It's not enough. It's just not. This club has to be better against Vancouver, and they need 3 points, because there are some really big matches coming up for Forge. They have a match against Cavalry coming up, a match against Pacific coming up. They cannot fail to secure 3 points against Vancouver. Looking at the home records. And by the way, Vancouver, I didn't mention their standing on the table because I already but they're in last place. They're in 8th place. They're an expansion club. Having said that, looking at the standings now, I didn't realize how close they were to Valor. They're only 3 points back of Valor. So, tough season for Valor. But Vancouver right now in 8th place, just 4 wins in 21 matches. They've scored 19. They've given up 40, which is far and away the most in the league. It's not even close. And at home, Vancouver has won 3 of their 4 matches at home this season. One of those matches is against Forge. In fact, at home, Vancouver has the 2nd worst record. 12 points in 10 matches. The worst record at home, York United. 11 points in 10 matches. Disappointing season for them, to say the least. But away from home, Forge has been good. 11 matches, 17 points. They're just 1 point back of the leaders in terms of away record, which is York. Weirdly enough, York is the best road team in the league and the worst home team in the league. You can try to figure that out. I cannot. Head to head, as mentioned, Forge, 1 win, Vancouver, 1 win, and there was a draw. And coming into this match, there's good news and bad news. We'll do the good news first. Forge, they have not lost in 3 matches. Bad news is they haven't won in 4 matches. So they've tied 3 matches in a row. And the thing is, Vancouver, like I said, they give up a lot of goals. Nearly 2 goals per match. 7 of the last 9 matches, they've given up at least 3 goals, which is huge. And Forge, by the way, on the other side of that, very good defensively over this little stretch. 5 of their last 7 matches, in total, their matches have gone combined with their opponents. There have been less than 3 goals per match in 5 of the last 7 for Forge FC. Forge still among the leaders in big chances this year. That's why this team, it's sometimes they're hard to figure out. Right? They play well, don't always get the results that they need or deserve. Forge FC, 46 big chances this season. That's second in the league. They are 2 behind Pacific. And ball possession, number 1, Forge FC, 56.1% per match. Kyle Becker still leads the league in key passes per match at 2.3. And Taron Campbell, still your league leader in goals, although he's sharing it right now with Ollie Bassett, both with 10. The only Vancouver player to kind of show up in these major stats is Sean Hundal. He has 6 goals. He is 4 off the lead, a bright spot in what's been an understandably tough expansion season for Vancouver. I mean, it is what it is. Shedding some more light on Vancouver, we head to the West Coast. That's where we catch up with Alex Gangué-Ruzic, makes his triumphant return to the Forge FC match day preview. Alex, the much anticipated return to the match day preview. Just, all the requests and all your fans have been clamoring for your return, and glad to have you back. We haven't talked in a while. Are you good? I mean, there's with the fires and things like that. I know you're out west. I don't know how it's impacting you.
Yeah, I mean, it's been certainly a tough time for those up in the interior. Luckily, I'm in Vancouver, so I'm in a bit away from it. There's a few days of smoke, but I mean, for us, I guess pales in comparison to those up north. So it's been getting better, which is good. And there's some great rain this week, which maybe in the summer most years you would be a bit disappointed, but we certainly took it this time.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I mean, I don't know what else to say. Hopefully things get better. It's one of those fluid situations, but I mean, glad you're doing okay. Vancouver, I guess this is what it is. It's an expansion club, very competitive league this year. When you look at the top half of the table, especially, it's going to be tough for a club like Vancouver to just come in and make waves. What's been your assessment? I mean, have there been any surprises from your standpoint with Vancouver in their first year in the league?
I'd say, I mean, based on what we expected, I think, we expected a team that was, maybe if all clicked, maybe you're pushing for a playoff spot at the end of the day. But I think realistically, battling that 8-7 spot was always expected. And I think they've shown a lot of positives. I think that was, there's been some games where there's been a lot to be impressed about with their play on the ball, flashes in game. You can see the quality. Some of the mid-season signings were a nice bonus as well, too, to kind of show that, okay, look, like the team's not messing around, already looking forward to maybe if things don't, you don't make the playoffs this year, but you're already looking ahead to building a squad for next year. And I think there's overall been a lot of positive glimpses. So I think, it's going to be interesting to see what this last, 7 games looks like. Can they really show how far they've come from the start of the season? I think if they can perhaps maybe get some results, at this point, playoffs is very far out of reach. But you can mess up the fates of those around you, and then you can start building for next year, because there's definitely some building blocks that I think a lot of CPL teams would have loved to build around, and Vancouver did well to poach and build a bit of a core in year one.
What about the community response to Vancouver FC? Obviously, you have the Whitecaps there. You have Pacific doing what they've done. Clubs that, Pacific, they're still new-ish, but still clubs that have some footing in the area. Where is Vancouver FC, just in terms of kind of the fan base, the community response? Have they been embraced at this point?
I mean, it's been a bit of a slow build. It's not that surprising, I think, given just the nature of the market. I think we saw flashes. I think, for example, that home opener was a great taste of, okay, look, this new team. But also, I think the games that have followed have showed also the challenges of having to build a fan base and getting fans out. And even just you learn a lot of little things in terms of just what ticket prices should be looking like, the family atmosphere, but also encouraging, adults to come out. And I think the club's been learning a lot. So I'm curious to really see what next year looks like. So just, talking to those who work in the club, who, especially on the off the field side, marketing, community engagement, and a lot of that, it's been a lot of learning. Mm-hmm. They'll be the first to hold their hands up, be like, look, there was a lot that we hoped for that didn't happen, or there's things that we learned a lot about that we want to apply. And I think it'll be curious to see if they can really get some momentum next year. Maybe if the results are a bit better as well on the field, year two, things start to gel. As we know with Vancouver as well, one thing it will always be is it's a very results oriented market. It's one where if you're doing well, if you're winning, that will be the easiest marketing you can ever do. But so certainly they'll hope for that. But even just little things in terms of community engagement, ticket prices, all that, they've learned a lot, and hopefully we'll see a result of all that with next season.
Yeah, I was a little surprised when I looked at the table, and they're right behind Valor. I mean, there's a chance that it seemed like a foregone conclusion, just that Vancouver would probably finish at the bottom, but there's a chance to overtake Valor, which says something about Vancouver, but maybe more against the season that Valor's had. But Vancouver, I mean, they've had 3 of their 4 wins have been at home. One of those was against Forge, and this team has given Forge trouble this year. There's a draw in there for Forge. There's a loss against Vancouver. For whatever reason, Forge they seem to maybe lack a little bit of urgency when they play against this club, and Vancouver's been opportunistic against them.
Yeah, and this Vancouver team, that's been a hallmark of their play, and I think something they could be extremely pleased about this year is that they were tough to play against. They've given every team fits. I mean, and Forge has seen it firsthand, and that's huge. I think that's what you want already in year one. You want to have that grit, that feistiness, that ability just to go up against anyone and maybe not roll over, not be intimidated by the challenge, because the other stuff can come. Tactics is going to come with time, chemistry, familiarity, figuring out what players fit where. It's kind of been a fresh start, right, for an Afshin Gotby. How do you figure out what squad you have at your disposal, what players are, there's just all that sort of stuff. Whereas at another coach or another club, you come in, you already got a core there. It's easier to build. So I think the fact that already in year one with the new team, they've been tough to play against, you can kind of see an identity forming. Their performances have shown, and the Forge games are a great example of that, because especially for an expansion team, those are the sorts of games that for top teams like Forge. I think of last year, Forge did very well to claim points against teams below them and teams that missed the playoffs. So for Vancouver to go up against them and claim a win, claim a draw as well, that certainly shows what Afshin Gotby's built in terms of that just resilience and that identity.
Yeah, no, it's been impressive. And have there been guys, a younger squad? Are there some young guys that, some up and comers, or maybe guys that have already made an immediate impact that we can kind of keep our eyes open for going into next season?
For sure. I think someone like Anthony White at the back has been someone who's come in nicely. First overall pick in the U Sports draft. Didn't really play much to start the season, but he just kind of got a chance and took with it, and has formed a nice partnership with Rocco Romeo, which he feels like a veteran. He's been in the CPL for a few seasons. He's still only 23, so that's a good young center back core worth looking at. I think players like James Cameron coming in out of nowhere, like this was someone who was a winger, still 18, 19. He's come in and become a great defensive fullback. That's looks like a piece they can build around. At the back, Tyler Crawford as well. So there's options at the back for them to build around. And then you move higher up the field. I mean, the one name that people have seen a lot of is TJ Tahid, and he's going to be definitely one. I mean, still just 16, so he's got a lot of growth still to come, but we've already seen the level and the potential he has. He already has 2 goals this season, which is, incredible for someone of his age. And a lot of nice pieces like that who are young. I mean, there's a reason why they're smashing the U21 minutes requirement, and I think that will bode well heading into future years that these guys all got that first year experience.
16 playing in a pro sports league is something I don't even want. Maybe in another broadcast we can talk about what we were doing at 16, but definitely not playing pro sports. So that's impressive in itself. And for Forge, we talked a little bit off air. You're more the West Coast guy in terms of covering this league for CanPL.ca, but you took in the Forge Ottawa match last weekend. And I guess not that surprisingly that more than half the game was just really condensed to the midfield and that playoff-like atmosphere. And I mean, Ottawa already kind of brings that frustrating brand of soccer as it is, but it just seemed ramped up for this match specifically as both clubs battling for prime real estate and really neither side giving up too much.
Yeah, and I think for Forge, that's positive, because I think this season defensively, it's been a bit all over the shop. There's been a lot more, multi-goal games than Forge would have liked. I mean, the fact already that by game 20 of this year, they'd already conceded more than 28 games last year. So I think from that perspective, you could see it was a very positive performance. I think, Forge kind of needed that defensively to get the confidence back. I mean, offensively, as we've seen, it's been a bit inconsistent, but I think for the most part, especially as guys get healthy, you're going to hope that David Choinière and, gets healthy for the stretch run. Tristan Borges as well missed out on that game, so hopefully he'll be back. And I think the offense will figure itself out, but the fact that the defense had such a positive performance is key, because Ottawa, this isn't the same Ottawa team of last year. This is an Ottawa team that can score goals, especially at home. So keeping a clean sheet against them, I thought that was a good sign from Forge's perspective.
Yeah, this season's been unbelievable, even just from a neutral standpoint, looking at the table week after week. I mean, seeing teams go from, second to fifth and first to fourth. And these are, really are 6-point swings week in and week out, to the point where, if you had to predict a final five, you might say these five might get in, but where they finish is anyone's guess at this point.
Yeah, it feels like every week I'm weighing up, like, what is that final five going to look like? Who's
right.
going to make it in? Who's going to win the title too? Because you can make convincing arguments for, all 6 teams that are kind of in the race as well. Because even from, you look at a team like York, a bit outside the race, but they've got 4 of their next 6 at home, including a 4-game homestand, all against teams in front of them in the race. You win a couple of those, you're right back in. So, it's been great to have that incentive. And I think Tommy Wilden Jr. had a great comment last week mentioning just the importance of wanting to win that regular season title, that Champions, Cup spot, playing in continental, football next year. So, and it just shows the importance of games like this one for Forge coming up to Vancouver, because if you end up missing out on a title by 1 or 2 points, dropping multiple points to a team like Vancouver on the road is going to hurt a lot for a team in title contention. But that's what you want. You want, these sorts of top games to matter, but also just the, games like this as well to matter for Vancouver, to look like, okay, we can disrupt Forge's title chances, for Forge to know, okay, we have to go away to Vancouver to get points to stay in this title race. I think it's just been thrilling to have it so close. And I think as we're seeing each week, these games are meaning more and more. And sometimes later on in this season, it can kind of just be a grind. You maybe already know what the playoffs look like, and you're just kind of keeping guys healthy, keeping guys in decent form ahead of the playoffs, whereas now it feels like everyone's gunning for it, and it's led to this photo finish.
Yeah, it's been great. And the other thing too is it could, to your point, it could come down to which team just gets hot at the end of the year, because we've seen some streakiness in, Pacific. Calvary is in form now, but they've had their moments as well. Ottawa had that slow start, and they've been really good lately. So it might just come down to which team is in better form in the last week of the season going into the playoffs, I guess.
Exactly that. I think that it's who can get go on a run of wins here, because that's, especially with how tight it is, draws aren't going to help your cause. You're going to have to maybe string a couple in a row. So we'll see which teams can do that. But definitely on that regard.
I haven't had a chance to ask you about him yet. Benny Banga, who, besides having the greatest name in sports history, the different, you mentioned Borges, you have Choinière, you have, Taron Campbell, and, Pacias is still there. And when you add Batty Banga to the mix, just what kind of dimension does he add to an attack that already has, multiple layers to it?
I think he's been fascinating to watch, because first and foremost, he's creative. He just kind of has this mind of wanting to try stuff, and it's kind of been unique. I think he kind of reminds me a lot of like Pacific's Eamon Salouf in that way, and I think those two brought a bit of a different look, because sometimes from wingers, what you see, especially professionally, there's a lot of safe play, if that makes sense. Like, you don't want to give the ball away. You don't want to, risk making mistakes. But ever since Batty Banga's come in, there's, he wants to do the flicks. He wants to do the tricks. He wants to have shots from distance. And sometimes that's what you need in the attack. You need risks. You need risk takers. So I've liked that because I think it's added a bit of something different to Forge's attack. Because someone like Borges, he's definitely on the more of the mercurial side, but he's also someone who, he can, not that plays safe in a way. Like that would be wrong to save Borges, but he's also someone who he manages the game very well. He manages moments, and I think there's a lot of players in Forge's attack that bring that. But I think Badi Banga, since he's come in, he's brought a bit of that X factor, and sometimes you need someone who can bring a bit of that difference in the attack. So I've liked what I've seen from him, and I expect to see a lot of him, because I think Forge has missed that at times this year, where they've kind of got the talent, they've kind of got the pieces, but maybe they've just needed something to tie it together. And perhaps it was just maybe a bit of that chaos that Badi Banga sometimes brings down that left flank.
Alexandre Gangué-Ruzic, welcome back, and thanks so much for doing this, because it's always fun talking to you. I learn something every time you speak, so I appreciate it. Listen, I'm sure there's still some games to be played. I'm sure we'll talk again.
Absolutely. I mean, with how the end of the season's looking like, who knows how it's gonna end. So I'm excited to keep following along, and hopefully we'll chat soon.
3 keys to the match: Forge FC and Vancouver going head to head on Sunday at 5:00 at Willoughby Community Park Stadium in Langley, BC. Key number 1 for Forge FC: urgency. For the most part, Forge, they've just, I said it earlier, they have lacked urgency in their matches against the expansion club, leading to some missed opportunities and drop points. Forge has to have a playoff-like mentality, and that's easy against clubs like Ottawa and York, but it's difficult to do against a non-playoff club like Vancouver. And Forge, they really need to ramp up the intensity and treat this match the same way they did in Ottawa. This has to be a 3-point match for Forge this weekend. Key number 2 for Forge: attack the third. Sticking with the theme of urgency, Forge felt they didn't do enough to find the open pockets in the attacking third against Ottawa, but they should have plenty of opportunities to do so against Vancouver, a club that concedes 2 goals and averages 40% possession per match. Key number 3 for Forge FC: launch pad. This is a golden opportunity for Forge. They are right in the thick of the playoff race for first place of the CPL. Their 5 remaining matches post Vancouver are against clubs that are just as desperate for points: Cavalry, Pacific, Halifax, Ottawa. A strong Forge-like effort against Vancouver, it could go a long way to building the confidence, that swagger this club has become synonymous with. Focus and will yourself to treat this match like it's a final, and use this as a launching pad down the stretch. Those are your 3 keys to the match for Forge FC taking on Vancouver FC. Before we go, reminder, because some big announcements have come down in the last week or so regarding the Spark Summit. We're a few weeks away from the 2nd annual event at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. This event, it connects and inspires professional women in the sports and entertainment industry. It goes down Saturday, September 9th from 4 to 7 p.m. at Tim Hortons Field. Following the panels, there will be an evening of networking and soccer on the club level at Tim Hortons Field during the Forge and Cavalry match. So you get the panel, you get to network, and you get to watch what promises to be a monumentally huge match between Forge and their rivals, Cavalry FC. The event will be hosted again by CBC and Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment host Jacqueline Dory. The panel will include Megan Cheka, the co-founder and CEO of Stathletes, TSN anchor Lindsay Hamilton, Patrice Whiffen, who founded one of the largest events and multimedia firms in Toronto, specializing in sports and entertainment, Karen Volden, VP of production for Uninterrupted Canada, a division of LeBron James's sports media company, Tiffany Lai, the senior manager of brand and creative design at the Canadian Football League, and Mary Lobson, who's the founder and CEO of Reese Technologies, Inc. Her company's trauma-informed online platform provides an outlet for reporting bullying, abuse, harassment, and discrimination, advocating for change across sectors and Industries. It promises to be a very, very special night on all fronts, and you can secure your spot by visiting forgefc.ca/Spark Summit. And I mentioned that match against Calgary. That's after this one against Vancouver. Again, why this match against Vancouver is so important is because it's only going to get difficult. This is you never want to, dismiss or look down upon an opponent, but this is an objective fact. This is by far the easiest opponent Forge will have down the stretch. So you cannot squander 3 points. You just can't. Because after this, it's Cavalry. That's the night of the Spark Summit. Then you have Valor. Again, winnable, but still a road match in Winnipeg. And then after that, home to Pacific, at Halifax, and home to Ottawa. I mean, these are 6-point swings. And if you've been following this league, this regular season up to this point, you know that you can end up going from 1st to 5th in the span of one match. That is how tight things are, and there's just not a lot of real estate, and these teams are squeezed together. They're feeling the pinch, and you're seeing that playoff-like atmosphere, and that is what Forge will have to bring this weekend against Vancouver. Immediately following this match, head on over to the Forge FC YouTube channel for an instant match in review right after that final whistle. Okay, enjoy the match, enjoy the long weekend, and we will talk to you very, very soon.
Forge FC is prepared, and now you are informed. This has been Match Day Preview with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. Subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.